This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
The Vikings and Eagles game this Sunday? Come find our street team on the plaza outside of US Bank Stadium and ask us how you can enter for your shot at Papa Murphy's Game Day Meal Deals for a year. Check out KFAN.com keyword calendar for all the details.
It's a Friday football beast edition of the Bumper to Bumper program. It's also a Let's Praise the Geezers edition of the Bumper to Bumper show as well. As we alluded earlier in the show, old quarterbacks, old pitchers, old columnists, legendary musicians. McCartney, of course, is in town tonight, and we're down to our final hour of trying to realize the dream of getting Paul McCartney on the show. Still doesn't look optimistic, Guardsy, is that correct?
US Bank Stadium from where I'm standing at Huntington Bank, and no, it does not, unless he calls the hotline in the next 40 minutes. Yeah.
Well, does he do the thing? Wasn't the legend that often Mick Jagger he could just show up in a hotel lobby bar, like a half a mile from wherever the Stones were staying or he was staying. You just never knew, right? He just could be there just hanging for a little bit. Do we know whether McCartney does that, or is McCartney such that he can't even afford to do what Mick Jagger does?
I don't know, because didn't Mick Jagger, he does record stores too. Didn't he run through like Electric Fetus one time?
That's right.
A bunch of people saw him there.
Yeah.
That's what I would do if I were those guys. I would do that too and just wander around and talk to, because you're not.
No question.
It's not announced, so there's not going to be any crazy crowd. You're just going to a store. You're just running an errand. It's not announced. In a foreign town, it'd be great.
How many Husker fans will we have tonight at the original bank at Huntington?
I think we'll have quite a few. Yeah, they usually travel pretty well. I would imagine, if you had me put a number on it, maybe 10,000, so probably something like that. A lot of Husker fans live here, too.
Are we selling out tonight or close to it?
Yeah, I think they're pretty close.
Okay.
I think they're pretty close. It's a beautiful if it was a Saturday,
too,
probably would have been sold out. Yeah, if it was a Saturday, I think it would be sold out for sure. Fridays are a little weird, but I would imagine we're pretty close if we haven't gotten there. But I'd say probably 7,000, 8,000, 10,000, somewhere in that. That'd be my guess. They usually travel pretty well.
When's the last time, especially given the fact that I think PJ's tended to win over the Huskers, the last time we've hosted Nebraska and have been as much as 7.5 or 8 point underdogs?
Good question. I don't know.
Got to be a while.
It would have had to. Yeah, it probably would have had to be early in Nebraska joining the Big Ten, which was Jerry Kill era. So probably 2011, 2012. I don't remember who was favored. The last time they played was the season opener 2 seasons ago here. And I don't remember who was favored in that game. It ended up being, I think, 13-10 on a walk-off field goal in the final play. But, yeah, it hasn't happened often. And what's been weird is the line started at 5.5 for Nebraska, went up to about 9, and then in the last day or so has been bet down to about 7. So Nebraska, as I was telling you earlier, they always get kind of the Dallas Cowboys point bump almost no matter who they're playing. I think a lot of people just bet Nebraska. But the analytics show that Nebraska should be a decent favorite tonight. So we'll see if that actually pans out.
All right. Their big shot running back is one of us, right? Holy Angels, Minneapolis, Emmett Johnson.
Yep.
We've talked about it during the week. You know the story too well that this team is not handling the run, actually handling the run, I think, even worse than the Vikings are at this point. So I assume that's a priority. Tell me about what we know about Emmett Johnson, what kind of runner he is, and how dangerous that part of it might be. Because I thought this is really more of a passing team anyway, but it sounds like Emmett Johnson, in fact, I think he last week, didn't he rush for like 177 yards? So Nebraska must be doing everything well. What do we know about Emmett?
Yeah, offensively, well, I'll just say they are kind of a passing team, but it's not what you would think when they have a high-profile quarterback. They're very dink and dunk. They're very short passes, let the receivers make people miss. They spread you out. They've got 4 or 5.
Power of completions,
right?
Yeah.
To a T.
Yeah.
And their quarterback, Raiola, is completing about 76% of his passes, but they're going for about 7 yards on average. And his wide receivers have 1,000 yards after the catch. He has 1,600 passing yards so far this season. 1,000 of those have come after the catch for the receivers. So they're not, they have explosive plays and explosive players, but it's not because they're just lining up and taking deep shots. They're much more, like we say, the power of completions bit. But Johnson, very quick, very elusive, and that's why it's scary, really, with all their skill position guys, because the Gophers haven't tackled well.
No,
earlier in the week, we mentioned the Cashman comment about the Vikings saying we're just too much leakage, where you have a guy wrapped up for a 3-yard gain and all of a sudden it's 6 or 7. That's been the Gophers for sure, and that's the biggest issue. They have not. They're approaching about 60 missed tackles in the Power 4 games, which if that happens again tonight, that's where they do put up 40 points on you. And they've scored, pretty much against everybody this year. Their defense, I don't think, has been quite as good, but they're just a really efficient offense. They've got, an old head coach, Dana Holgerson, who's their offensive coordinator now, and Raiola is running the system really at a really, really high level and spreading it around. They have 4 receivers with at least 20 catches, which the Gophers, by reference, have 1. So they've got a lot of different ways to beat you.
All right, so in terms of, it's been well documented, the Minnesota running game is not what we're accustomed to under PJ. So what do you see? I mean, you got your number 1 running back. Is he the same? How much of it is that he's not quite there for whatever reason? How much of it is he's getting hit almost as soon as he gets the ball?
Yeah, I'd say 75% that and 25% Darius. I put a lot of this on the offensive line. And he had one opportunity last week to kind of break one. I think he kind of slipped. That might be because he's rusty. I don't know. But they're just not getting enough push. They're just not getting enough. They're not being physical enough. They're getting beaten up front. Their short yardage game all season has not been very good. 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, 3rd and 2, 4th and 2. They're basically in the 30 percentile for converting, which at a time was the worst in the Big Ten. I know it was last week. I can't imagine anybody's gone lower than them. They just haven't been able to figure out the offensive line stuff. And then, 2 of the Big Ten games, they got down double digits so early that they kind of had to abandon the run. They couldn't waste any time trying to figure out if they were going to be able to establish it. I think they thought they would run the ball better last week. A lot of people had against Purdue, but once they got down 10, and they had to go with what they know they can do, which is put the ball in Drake Lindsey's hands and try to get things going that way. Ended up working just in the nick of time for them to salvage the win yesterday. But a lot of things have been working against the running game. Obviously, Taylor being hurt for one, the way the games have unfolded too. But part of the reason that they've been down so early is because they haven't been able to establish the run at the beginning and move the ball. But I put a lot of it up front, and they've mixed guys around. They haven't really mixed new guys in. They've moved guys around that are already on the offensive line in different positions. I think they might try that again tonight. We'll see. But they have to find a way to run the ball enough. And Nebraska might be the team to do it against. They're allowing 5 yards of carry or more so far this season. So you'd like to think you got to get it enough, because as much as I like Drake, it's just a big ask to throw everything on him every single game. You got to give him a little bit of relief somehow.
Yeah, I think that might have caught up with him last week at times too. Chris writes, if the Gophers repeat the 84-13 beatdown to Nebraska tonight, would Grimm still blame the loss on the officiating?
If Nebraska repeats it?
Yes.
Oh, it depends. When do the calls happen? Do they happen early on important
when
plays?
It was still a game.
Yeah, there's a lot that we're leaving out there in that hypothetical. We'll see. Did you hear that I had to call him Cheryl Reeve in I think it was the Ohio State game?
No.
I had to call him Cheryl Reeve at one point. Yeah, it was the middle of the night. There were a couple of bad calls in the first half. Grimm didn't like it. And he was going nuts on the air. And so I did a sideline report and then threw it back to Cheryl Reeve, because why not?
How did he take that?
I think he understood where I was coming from.
Okay, he didn't pout. Yeah. That's good.
No, definitely not.
That's it. The famous long time ago when I was working in Dallas, it was the 85 Bears year. And the Bears come to Dallas. Skip Bayless was writing a column. He was a colleague of mine at the Star Tribune, at the Dallas Morning News. And I don't know if he wrote a prediction column that the Cowboys were going to upset him, or he just said it. Or maybe it was both. I'm not sure. And early in that game, the Cowboys missed on it what would have been like about a 70-yard touchdown pass, right? Ball was just slightly overthrown. And Bayless was trying to tell people that could have changed everything. That was, by the way, in a game, I think the Bears won it like 55-0. And I can still remember Gary Myers, who was another teammate, walking up to Bayless in the press box saying, "You think it might have been 55-7, Skip, if Tony Hill had caught that touchdown pass?" Bayless did not appreciate that at all. So same deal.
We'll never know. They didn't hit it. He may have been right.
Might have changed the whole thing. Put the Bears are not a good come from behind team. Then who's to say? All right, well, enjoy tonight. You got good weather. Weather seems. I think it's
great.
I don't think I see some clouds to the west, but I don't think there's any rain in the forecast. So
shouldn't be. Yeah, it looks awesome.
This should be good. All right, thanks for checking in. We'll talk next week. Thanks, Guardsy.
Yep, see ya.
Guardsy will be a part, of course, the Vikings pregame, which will start at 5 o'clock. That's why we are out early today. We've got Ben Goessling for the latest Vikings developments. In fact, we'll get to some of those developments as confirmed earlier today by the head coach before we chat with Ben. And then, as I mentioned, we wrap up at 5.
Off the bye week, the Vikings will look to the ground to the Philadelphia Eagles this Sunday at noon. Catch every touchdown, every sack, and every game-changing play right here on the audio home of the Minnesota Vikings football, KFAN, and go on the go with the free iHeartRadio app, and on the go with the free iHeartRadio app.
All right, we are indeed back until Ben Goessling is going to join us in about 10 minutes today. I want to take a look at a few texts that have come in as we prepare for him. Speaking of geezers, 651 guy writes, "I'm not sure you can call him a geezer yet, but the current favorite in Vegas to win the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor is 65-year-old Sean Penn for his role in One Battle After Another. I've seen the film and can attest that his performance is outstanding." Yeah, I don't know what the dividing line is when it comes to geezerdom. Although as young as this whole culture seems to be getting, that probably would be considered ancient, even though it's really not as ancient as it once was. Who is Carl picking for the Vikings game? I'm pretty sure he picked in a no-brainer the Eagles to win. I think I understood him accurately there. 320 guy, why do you allow this clown on a Minnesota radio station? We do get some of those. Not as many lately, but occasionally we get people whose sensibilities are offended by our willingness to continue to share radio time with one Carl Gerbschmidt. I mentioned last night at the start of the show the quarterback duel, as it turned out, between Joe Cool, Flacco, of course, and Aaron Rodgers. I didn't see the video after, I think it was Rodgers' last touchdown pass. He apparently got knocked down by one of his linemen in celebration and did not take that all that well. I was also told that he got mad at one of his running backs, accusing basically the player of, this was the flea flicker attempt. And I thought what I read was that Rodgers was angry because he was acting as if that wasn't the call and the running back had blown it. But I've read elsewhere that indeed that was the call, and Rodgers either missed it or did not want to acknowledge it. So there's always, I had said to Guardsy yesterday that I thought this was a much less tense, more loosey-goosey A-Raj than we're accustomed to. Helping jackals attach their microphones to the other microphones so it doesn't fall off the stage, all that kind of good stuff. But you saw, despite his success yesterday, a lot of crankiness in his part too. So I don't know that you'll ever take all of the get off my lawn out of Aaron Rodgers, but he looked pretty damn good to me last night. The game before, what I'd seen was a lot of safety stuff, a lot of short passes. Again, there's power in completions. We know that. But what I saw in that game yesterday was, I'm pretty sure he completed a 3rd and 12 or 3rd and 16 for a touchdown. And we haven't seen that Aaron Rodgers in a while. Now, I grant, Steelers looked awful again defensively. That has to be factored in. But I thought it was a great quarterback matchup, and I was doing more of the projecting about what that form of A-Rod might have been here. I got the quick retort, well, if you had been working with our offensive line, they would have killed him the first 2 weeks, which sounds good, and there might be some truth to it, but he's the master at getting the ball out of his hands quickly. And I think a lot of Vikings fans they're in defense mode, and they are doing whatever they can to diminish contributions and accomplishments from any other quarterback that the Vikings might have had while they wait for their guy, J.J. McCarthy, to indeed return. And so now official, if you've not heard, no surprise, we had already pretty much told you this on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday that Carson Wentz would start in this game. The head coach made it official just after 2 o'clock. And to me, the more tantalizing nugget is that McCarthy will not be the backup quarterback either. Garzy's guy, Max Brosmer, will be the backup. And McCarthy will be the emergency quarterback. And we're going to talk to Ben about whether we're starting to get close to the point where there's some concern about just the recovery ability of this guy. That's another form of ability. There's availability, there's ability, there's availability, there's durability, and there's recoverability. How quickly can you bounce back from whatever you have? And some players have the knack to do that and perform well with injuries. And look, that's not at the top of the list with J.J. McCarthy, but it's an important facet of how we evaluate players, and certainly how we evaluate quarterbacks is how quickly can you bounce back. I still do worry about, he just looks slight to me. He just does not look very strong. And I do worry that might catch up with him as well. Bottom line is, it's Wentz's team this week. I think it's likely it'll be Carson Wentz's team Thursday. And then at that point, that's where it really gets interesting. Because if you don't play McCarthy when the Vikings return to action in Detroit a week from the following Sunday, then you'll know something is up. If you follow the story like we like to do on this show, these quarterback sagas often simply, I guess you could say, reveal themselves. They take care of themselves. If Wentz struggles, it'll be easier to say it's time to go back to McCarthy and give him a chance to really take the reins of this team. If Wentz plays well and they beat the Eagles, he's playing against the Chargers. If he plays well and the Vikings beat the Chargers, I think he deserves to play again, and I'll keep putting it off until he gives me a reason to go back to the other position. I've been around too many teams and too many coaches for me to think that the Vikings are going to move away from that, just because the original plan was we got to get him playing time and experience this year. The Vikings, once they made the decision to build on what took place a year ago, add more talent, they opened the door, as far as I'm concerned, to the possibility that if the guy they want to hand the ball off to is injured, they're going to have to keep playing the games with whoever can help them win. And if that player helps them win or is not considered part of the problem, you're going to keep playing him. This coaching staff, we heard it from Alec Lewis yesterday. This coaching staff, this general manager has they all have too much to lose at this point to just cavalierly throw away a season and say, well, if we have to lose games to get McCarthy up to speed, we will do so willingly. I just don't think that works. Remember, this staff does not have a single playoff victory. That's going to start being noticed pretty soon, even with gaudy regular season records. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see what happens on Sunday, and we'll come back and get the injury update, not just at the quarterback position, but at several other spots with our guy, Ben Goessling. He is next.
It's Purple Friday here on The Fan, and we've got your tickets into Sunday night's showdown with Philly. Be caller number 11 right now to win a pair of tickets to see the Vikings take on the Eagles this Sunday. Call now.
We are are indeed wrapping up the program early today because Gopher pregame show will start at 5 o'clock this very evening. We'll have a 1-hour edition of Sunday Sermons on Sunday leading into Vikings-Eagles. That's where our next guest will be. Ben Goessling joining us via the Connecticut Water Systems Hotline. Ben, brought to you by Standard Heating and Air Conditioning. I'm looking at a piece. It looks like this is from the New York Post about an appearance by Sports Illustrated's Albert Breer. He was on in Boston, 98.5, the Sports Hub, and the subject was Drake May, who, after some struggles last year, seems to be emerging right in his second season. Here's what they claim Breer said regarding what the Minnesota Vikings offered to move up to get Drake May. He says the Vikings offered the Patriots the 11th pick, the 23rd pick, a 2025 first-round pick, as well as some pick swaps later on to move up. Now, I think you know very well just how interested and fascinated by Drake May, KOC, and the Vikings were. Do those specifics align with what you remember? Does that sound about right, or what do you remember about that period? Well, I guess I got to pot him up. Oh, now we got him. You hear us okay now? No, we don't have. We don't unfortunately have Mr. Goessling. So we'll see. Kara's working the phones right now to get a ticket giveaway going, and we'll try. Let me try Ben again. Ben, can you hear us okay now?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Okay. I heard you the whole time.
Yeah, unfortunately we couldn't. Yeah, we weren't getting you on our end.
Okay, well, I'll go into my. I had started a very profound and riveting answer on Drake May. So
yes.
I take one as unfortunately lost to history, but I will attempt to recreate it.
Do the best you can to get back, summon up that same emotion, if at all possible, as hard as that is.
Yeah, it's always hard the second time.
That's true.
See what I can do.
No doubt.
Yeah, I do think that is about right in terms of what they were looking to send to the Patriots in those negotiations. I think when they made the move up to get back into the first round in 2024 to get that second first-round pick, I always thought that was with the idea that they could trade that pick if they wanted to move up and get Drake May. I think the thing they wanted to avoid the whole time was having to give up 3 years' worth of first-round picks. I don't think they wanted to be without a number one choice for 3 years if they made a deal. So I think part of their thinking was, let's try to send 2 of those and then send this year's. It would have been 2025. When I say this year, that's what I mean. It would have been the 2024 and 2025 first-round picks, but they would not have had to part with another one a further year into that quarterback's contract. So, yeah, I think that is about right. And obviously the Patriots decided we don't want to do it. We want either more than that, or we're going to sit and pick the guy that we are going to take at number 3. And I think the way Drake May has played this year shows you why they had the kind of faith in him. I mean, he has, I think, he's had the benefit of time. He had time to struggle a little bit last year. But the way he's played, he certainly looks like the answer at that position. I mean, that has revitalized that franchise in a pretty significant way. And you see a lot of why the Vikings liked him as much as they did. And ultimately, probably in the end, why the Patriots said, you know what, we're going to stick and pick, and it certainly looks like that has paid off for them at this point.
It speaks to a subject you and I have explored, and I've explored elsewhere on this show pretty much all summer, to the unfairness that J.J. McCarthy is going to have to live with, is already living with, and is definitely going to have to live with now whenever he comes back, right? Because he's not, I don't care what the fans say, he's not going to be given, because of the infrastructure of the team itself, the opportunity to struggle quite as long, quite as often as you say Drake May did a year ago. The Patriots were in a position a year ago where they knew they weren't really going anywhere, even though I'm sure the head coach wanted to win because he was going to be on his way out the door and he was fired. But the fact is, they knew, right? All right, we're not going anywhere, so let's throw him out there. He's our best option right now. and see if we can get him to the other side so that by the time you get back this year, he's starting to feel it a little bit. McCarthy is not going to have that luxury, whether he deserves it or not.
No, he's not. And that has always been the tricky balancing act of this, where you have a team that is set up to win now. And I think this is kind of part and parcel to the way the Vikings have done things for a long time.
Yes.
It's not an organization that wants to drop into these deep valleys and say, let's amass all of these high picks from years of being bad, and then you kind of go at it and say, now we've got our foundation, we can build the thing back up. It has been trying to win while keeping the roster refreshed, and that is a difficult thing to do. There's a reason you don't see a lot of teams do it, but it has been very much, I think, the way the Vikings have gone about it for most of the Wilfs ownership of the team over the last 21 years. And certainly in the 14 years I've been covering the team, that's been the way they've typically gone about it. So it does, in this type of situation, put people in a tough spot, puts a young quarterback in a tough spot, I should say, because you're not necessarily talking about this long development period where there are no stakes to it. You can still develop him, but it does come at that time where you're also trying to win. And I think what they have hoped to do is put enough pieces around him that if he's at least playing kind of sufficient starting caliber quarterback level, you don't have to necessarily be the best in the league, but if you can get representative play from him, they're going to be good enough everywhere else to make it count. And I think that's still very much the hope when he gets back. But yeah, there is no doubt it is a unique situation. It is not one you see a lot of teams go through. And some of that was, I suppose, they had so much success with Sam Darnold last year while they're waiting on J.J. McCarthy to recover from that injury that it changes the expectations. But that is where they are. And I think it makes it a unique line for them and him to have to walk.
I think it sort of became academic this week, did it not? As the week went on, and McCarthy was limited in practice, and you have the head coach on record saying he's got to have a full week of practice. Whatever debate we want to have or think we should have regarding who should be starting at the position, how quickly, it became immaterial, right? It all became academic that clearly McCarthy is not ready to play and that there is no other choice other than, I guess, opening the door to Brosmer playing if indeed Wentz is favoring that shoulder or he gets re-injured in that area. If you're not ready to play, you're not going to play, correct?
Yeah, I think that's it. And I think when he came out I lost track of my days, on Wednesday, when he talked and said, it's not 100%, right, it's getting there, but it's not there. I mean, Kevin O'Connell has been pretty clear that he's not going to play unless he's fully recovered from that thing. And the whole idea of the emergency quarterback thing this week, I know if he were to get in there, that could be the one loophole to that. But in general, they're not going to put him in that situation. I think it's unlikely enough that they end up in the spot where they need the emergency thing. I'm not sure it's worth spending a ton of time belaboring, is he healthy enough for that or is he not healthy enough for the other stuff? I think the fact that he's not 100% yet is the main reason he's not starting. You're not going to see him go back out there when that is still the case. And I think when he said that on Wednesday, it made it pretty clear this is how it's going to go this week.
So we got into the subject yesterday about timetables. And high ankle sprains are problematic. We get all of that. But when, you mentioned the statement that was the alarm bell to me was the player himself, and, I'm not asking the player to lie, but when the player himself says, I'm not 100% and it's annoying, and the head coach is calling the injury unique, then I start wondering, well, is there more going on here? And internally, might there be any sort of frustration that it is taking this long? Because we're now, I think today is day 33. I had my math all wrong last week. I had him out 6 weeks, so that's not possible because he played, obviously, the second week. But we're coming up on, to me, close to where you're going, well, now this is lingering more than we thought. What do you think the internal feeling is on that? And does that have anything to do with what seemed like a more tense version of KOC as the week went on?
Well, I think the tension was he has been I think, bothered by this idea that, well, it's not a real injury. So when he said the unique thing, too, I think that was part of that. He used the word unique. The word he really wanted to have there, kind of as a clapback probably to people, was the fact that he said it's a real injury. I think that was very much by his intention of trying to say, no, this is a real thing. And I think, the conversations I've had there have, if it's not real, they have spent enough on MRIs that I would not imagine you're sending a bill to a doctor for that if you're trying to do it for a fake injury. I mean, they have done this in a way. I mean, you're not doing that. It's a real injury. They have treated it as such, and I think the fact that they've done the number of exams they've done with it is further evidence of that. And they frankly have to be lying on the injury report if it wasn't. Right. So some of that, I think he has been bothered by that, that conspiracy theory that's crept up a lot, and this idea that he is lying about the idea of it being a real injury has, given him a little more edge, probably. I think some of those comments that he made this week are with regard to that. So as far as internal expectations of any of this stuff taking too long, I don't really get that sense. I think it's something that they want to get resolved. I know he's annoyed with it, and he talked about, if I could cut my ankle, I'd go out there and play, and certainly that's not going to happen. But the general idea of, do you put him out there now versus thinking about the fact that he's 22 and you want him to be the quarterback long term, there is that tension, because I know he wants to go, and I know they want him to be available, but you're not talking about a guy that's 34 years old or 38 years old or something like that. You are trying to get him to a point where he's healthy, that there's not going to be some kind of bigger issue, and B, to the point where he is feeling strong and trusting that ankle and knowing he can do what he wants to do and drive off of it and be able to make plays on the run. I mean, all of those parts of his game depend on that back foot being strong. So I think a lot of what they're dealing with is just the fact that it's a long timetable. I mean, ankles are tricky in part because they don't get a lot of blood flow. I mean, anything in our feet, anybody who's ever had a foot or ankle injury knows that it take a long time to heal, just because you don't get as much circulation in that part of your body. It makes it a longer recovery process. So you kind of end up in these spots where it takes a while, and especially at playing that position in that particular foot, I think adds another layer to the whole thing, why it requires some patience, even if it's frustrating to have it.
Do we get any sense about Wentz's shoulder in that, I mean, is it sort of like he's one shoulder tweak? We're one shoulder tweak away from Max Brosmer being the quarterback, or is he seemingly come back pretty strong from this thing? Because it feels like all the emphasis, or much of it, has been on JJ. But what do we know about the extent of the injury, the shoulder injury, how it can be protected, or whether that's a real concern, regardless of McCarthy's condition going into Sunday?
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, we've talked McCarthy all week, but yes, Carson Wentz came out of that game. I think that shoulder was pretty banged up coming out of it. He played with a harness in the second half of it. But the fact that he was a full participant every day this week, I think is a good sign. I mean, they did not have any day where they had to limit him because of it. So I think they've been able to manage it to the point where he should be able to do everything he wants to do. And he said, some of it's a matter of, I need to slide and need to take a little better care of my body as I go through it. Yeah. But no, I don't think he'll be limited by anything with where it stands. I mean, you're always, because it's your left shoulder, it's the front side when you're throwing, and it is possible you get hit there, and you have to figure out what you do. Can you put it in a harness again? Can you, figure out other ways to manage the pain? I mean, people can figure out what I mean by that, but it is something that they'll have to worry about if it takes another big shot, if he has to figure out a way to get through the game. But overall, I think the way he's gone through the week, he should be in a pretty good spot to start. It didn't seem like it was something that limited any of the work he did this week. Yeah, that seems fair. All right, so among the rest of the injuries, well, give me a sense of who you think will start along the offensive line. Yeah. I think Donovan Jackson will be back. The fact that he did not have an injury status today, I think is significant, because I think he had played relatively well at that left guard spot to this point. I would expect he is back on Sunday. And then Blake Brandel starts at center once again. And Michael Jorgen's still questionable coming back from the hamstring. And I think Brandel played well enough that they will say, let's stick with it. I mean, they announced he will start, and I think part of that is because he played well with Carson Wentz, and it gives you a little more size against that Eagles defensive line. We were talking about Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis in the middle of it. It is a lot to deal with when you have those two tackles, and Brandel gives them a little more size against those guys. And then obviously Will Fries is healthy, and then Brian O'Neill will be the question. He's questionable for the game. He said today that if he plays, he'd have to play with a brace. He's had a fairly big brace on that knee this week, so I would be a little surprised if they say, let's go out and do it this week, especially knowing that you have a short week. The turnaround's a little tougher. I wouldn't be surprised if they say they're going to wait on that one, but at least as healthy as they are right now, I mean, Ryan Kelly is on the injured reserve list with concussions, but otherwise, if you look at kind of their best case scenario, they should have a lot of it. I think it's going to be healthier than it's been. O'Neill would be, at least as I see it at this point, kind of the big question going into Sunday. And it may be Justin School there again at right tackle. But from Jackson to Brandel to Fries, and then, of course, Christian Darris on the left side, they should be healthier than they've been to this point.
All right, we only got about a minute left. I have officially picked Nebraska to beat the Gophers tonight and the Vikings to beat the Eagles on Sunday at high noon. Will I regret the latter of those two picks?
I went back and forth on this. I initially was going to pick the Eagles, but I think the Vikings' recovery from some of these injuries has been better than what the Eagles have had this week. I mean, Landon Dickerson, their guard, was a full participant today, but he's still questionable. Jalen Carter's had the heel injury this week. He said he's good to go, but I think the Eagles have had some caution with that. So neither of these teams have been very good at stopping the run, and I think the Vikings probably will do it a little bit better, especially with Blake Cashman back. I think that's a big deal for them as well. So I actually did pick the Vikings in this one, and much as I hate to say it, I think you're going to be right on the Gophers tonight too. I was at the homecoming game. I think they're going to have trouble, defensively being able to keep things where they want them, and it won't be 19 whatever year that was, 1983 was 84-13.
84-13. Right.
I think Nebraska wins that tonight.
Yeah, Nebraska is weird. They can. Every time you think they're breaking through, then they turn around and lose a game they're not supposed to.
Yeah,
but I still think that's the way it might go. And are you in the group that believes that Wentz, unless it's a disaster on Sunday, he's likely to start Thursday just again because it's such a quick turnaround?
Yeah, I am. I think unless he gets hurt or unless there's something that's a major disaster, like you said, I think he starts. I mean, I'm sure McCarthy would love to play in that game. Apologies to Amazon that you don't get the McCarthy versus Harbaugh storyline necessarily, but yeah, I think it's Wednesday, Thursday night, barring anything terribly weird on Sunday.
Thanks as always for the help. We appreciate you. We'll talk next week. Thank you, Ben.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks,
Ben Goessling, Standard Heating and Air Conditioning, brings Ben to you each and every week. You're hearing the music early, the Spinners, because we're done for the Gopher pregame show. Guardsy and company are coming up next. Gophers, Nebraska. I'll be back with a 1-hour edition of Sunday Sermons at 9 o'clock after Gopher Football Sunday as well. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the evening, and we will talk then.